Okay, folks, this is the last bit of our intro to sculpting tutorial for Cinema 4D. I wanted to talk a little bit today about adding some finer details. So one thing that's great about using Cinema is that there's a whole bunch of presets in the content browser, and you should definitely download those if you haven't. This only works if you have the presets. So we're going to go to the pull tool, and if we go to settings, you'll find there's something called settings and brush presets. So if you click on load, there's a whole menu of all kinds of different settings that you can use. So for example, if I wanted to take this cracks, for example, let's just go to the top here. I can use this, click and drag, and it will import some cracks over the surface, right? Which is great. The other thing that you can do is if it shows up, a little subtle, you can always go to amplify and draw over this and make it more pronounced. So that's a great way of working kind of with those tools together. You can also increase the pressure and those sort of things as you're working, but I like to just sort of like start subtle and make it more detailed as you go. Just undo that. Other presets in here, there are all kinds of these shapes, which are these maps. So if I wanted to put a little screw here, I could just click and drag that and it'll add that in anywhere you like. All right. Other ones, some things like you'll see a full texture sort of start to finish, and especially if it like craters is one. Elephant skin. There's a few of these fabric, other these things that you can do. So if you click on the craters, for example, it's going to give you this transparent overlay, and you can navigate your model, around up and down. So if I wanted to put a crater like right in the middle of the head there, I could navigate my model to, let's say, right there, and then draw over this, and it will start to appear on the surface, right? So you can, and the more that you draw over, the more contrasty or higher or more detailed it will get. If you are done with that, you can just click reset to get rid of that. And you can see really cool details that you can get with something like that. So those are the presets in there that give you that transparent overlay. You just have to kind of navigate through them. There's a bunch of different ones. Floor pattern might do some, yeah, floor pattern does one too. So there's a whole bunch of that are in there that you can use accordingly. Other things, there are shapes that you can extrude, like face shapes. So let's say you want to put a nose on here, just click and drag this and it'll give you kind of a nose form, which is kind of interesting. And then, what's cool is you can go with the grab tool and, manipulate it further, right? So it's actual part of the geometry as you go. So that's a great tool to use. There are other types of shapes in there. Again, under the pull tool, there's all these menus that you can use for different sort of textures and surface elements, which are really great. So navigate through here, play around, experiment, see what you can do. Here's some scratches, put those in. Sometimes they have that little dotted thing I don't like, but we'll research how to get rid of that. Anyway, check through the menu, see what kind of things you can do to add some of those subtle details. Now, one more thing that's similar to that is called repeat. So if you click on repeat, what this does is similarly, you can add a brush preset. So if you click on load, and what you're going to look for are ones that look like they would be in a line. So like this dragon skin is one. I believe there's a zipper. These pipes also do this. And so what these do is you'll kind of like draw over the surface and then it will follow it. So if I click and draw this with the pipes, you can see that I'm getting those repeated shapes again and again and again. So it's like a seamless texture that you can draw over the surface and can give you really great details that follow your line as you kind of go through. So between the pull and repeat, you can get all kinds of really cool textures and make a really highly detailed, interesting model. All right, so we'll just sort of finish this up with a few more craters. That looks pretty good. All right, so let's say I'm done with this. I'm ready to save it. You can go back to your layouts, all right, and then go back to the startup menu. Okay, and so I just wanted to point out one thing about sculpting. So sculpting, again, it applies all of those things that you've done to your primitive object, but it's not necessarily a permanent mesh right now. So if I click this tag right here, this is a sculpting tag. If I were to delete this, it would go back to that sphere that we had originally. undo that. So what I like to do with this is keep this version, and then also make merge down a copy to save, right? So if we go click on, make sure it's selected in the object manager, go to mesh, go to conversion, and click current state to object, right? What that's going to do is create a little bit of a copy. If I hide this one, okay, there we go. So that one's hidden now, and we have just this one here. I can look at the mesh. So if I go to display and do shading with lines, you can see that this now is a polygon mesh, which is exactly what I want. You may notice that when you do the conversion down, you get a little bit of weird stuff happening. So if we turn this off, you can see, go to just red shading here, and you see in here it's a little pixelated. You can actually go to the sculpting tools, which is cool. So if you go to sculpt, if you go to mesh and brushes, there's smooth. So you can go in here and just kind of like smooth that out a little bit, which is great. Just a little bit of smoothing anywhere where you may need to get rid of some of those pixelizations is a great way to do that. All right, so that, again, just finishing it up, kind of making it a version that you can work on. If you wanted to manipulate this further, you could always go back to this model and bring it in the sculpt menu and continue to work. So just as a quick illustration, again, these are a copy of one another, right? There we go. Those are twins. And again, what I've done is keep this copy and just hide it, okay? The top button is the editor and the bottom button is the renderer. So when you render, you don't see it. And that's it for sculpting. We'll get in more about how to add color and materials to this model later on. But for now, this is the end of the intro to sculpting in Cinema 4D.